regular meeting. Can I have confirmation of quorum, please?
Yes, confirmed.
Yep. Call the meeting to order. Can I have adoption of the public agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Director Cornfield and Director Abram, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Petitions, delegations, BC Salmon Farm Association. So this time, I believe Michelle France is online, and I don't know about John Paul Fraser. Michelle, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Go ahead, Michelle.
Actually, John's going to do the speaking today. So, John, I see he's online here, so I'm just going to turn it on.
I'm
Excellent.
here. Mayors, thank you for having us. Councillors. Thank you, Michelle. I think we're also joined by Dean Dubrinsky. Dean, have you joined the call?
Yes, I'm here, John.
Thank you. Dean is from Moe Canada West, and he'll go after me. I think it was important that we include Dean, who's the Director of Human Resources and manages the communications, particularly around this decision, and has his company is most greatly impacted. We thought we would have him today as a resource in case there were any specifics about some of the impacts that he could share that I couldn't.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I think at this point, Michelle's going to take control of the screen. And then we're going to stop at one point. I think Edith's going to take over to run the video, and then I'll come back. And I want to thank everyone for having us. We had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to present a version of this report to members of the Mount Waddington Regional District, and also earlier to the Council of the Whole of the City of Campbell River, which did include mayors from many of whom are on the call today, from Gold River, Port Hardy, Port McNeill, and Sayward, as well as Campbell River, obviously. And we've presented this material to other associations, the Vancouver Island Economic Alliance, the BC Business Council, and also other local sort of chamber organizations. So if you've seen this before, and I think some of you have, I do apologize if it's somewhat repetitive. But thank you for having us today. My job is to talk about the consequences of the decision to shut down salmon farming. And I hear a little bit of feedback, and that's my focus. My focus is to talk a bit about this report, which we made public a couple of weeks ago now. Attracted a fair amount of attention, so today's an opportunity for me to present it. If there are detailed questions about the report, I'm happy to take them. Unfortunately, our economist, Doug Blair, who produced it, is not available today. But I know that he'd be very willing to follow up with anyone if they had any specific questions about some of the data and modeling. Just a little bit of context. So the next slide, Michelle. Just some context. I think most of you know this already, but that we are the association of over 70 members, primarily on BC's coast, primarily in Northern Vancouver Island, is where most of our members are from. The vast majority are small, local, medium-sized businesses. We have some municipal governments like Port Hardy who are members. We have a number of several Indigenous-owned businesses as well. So it's quite a large spectrum of folks involved in our community. We support salmon farming in general. Over 6,500 family-supporting jobs are related indirectly, directly, or induced through salmon farming, according to the data that we've been able to produce. Every salmon farmer in BC has been certified by at least one third-party organization, such as Aquaculture Stewardship Council, which is really the gold standard. And of note, those farms in the Discovery Islands have received that certification. The farm-raised salmon is really, and we should be proud of this on our coast, the most climate-friendly protein that's raised on the planet today that we know of. It has the lowest carbon output that you can get. And that's a really important value for us. Not mentioned here, but absolutely should be. And I'm mad that it's not, is about 80% of the salmon that we do produce comes via partnership agreements with local Indigenous governments. We, on a weekly basis, so over 6 million meals that go to Canada and go globally. And through this last pandemic, when we were declared an essential service by governments, federal and provincial, we were also able to, very importantly, donate over 500,000, 500,000 meals to Canadian families through food banks here in Vancouver Island, but also across the country through Food Banks Canada partnership. And that's certainly something we hope to continue. And I know the food banks very much would love that. It was an excellent partnership. So you've got the #1 agricultural export commodity, and it contributes 1.6 billion annually to BC's economy. And those aren't numbers; those are people. Those are citizens. Those are neighbors. These are people that are doing it. It's not some sort of big machine. It's a lot of folks working hard together over many decades to really build what we have on the coast, and we're very proud of. We had, next slide, Michelle, we had done some work over the course of the fall to produce for the provincial government primarily an economic impact analysis, because obviously the region, the province is facing the biggest economic impact that anyone has ever experienced. There's no one really alive in the world unless you're over 100 years old. So I guess there's a few folks out there who've ever seen an economic decline the way that we currently have. And no one has experienced, because it hasn't happened yet, how we're going to get out of it. And throughout the pandemic, we could see that our sector was quite resilient in terms of job impacts. We received essential service designation. And we had begun to think that, you know what, particularly for Northern Vancouver Island, and the questions that were being asked by government of industries and sectors, who's going to help with the recovery of our economy? And so we produced a very detailed report that projected about $1 billion and 10,000 new jobs over a 30-year period if there was incremental, sustainable, practical increase in production on our coast, given where the market was at, where community interest was at, and how we could invest and where our investment strategies were going. So really exciting vision, and we were really proud to present that to local regional governments and also to the provincial government. And we're kind of only beginning our efforts to communicate what we could do and how we would want to help with economic recovery. And then December 21st happened, or sorry, December 17th. And it's, I think, fair to say that it's an absolutely devastating consequence for our sector that we're still getting our heads around because of the shock. But 3 months in, things are beginning to get clear. And we produced a short video here that I think we should go to next, that I think will just show what kind of real person impact this decision is going to have, and then I can talk a bit about its impact. So that's the cue to move to the, here we are.
My biggest thing is, what am I going to do if this shuts us down? I'm only a 3-year homeowner now. I have a child to worry about. So I think it's the closer we get, I think it'll finally start kicking in for me.
If they're closing down 30% of production without any consultation, well, where does that end? This is my home, and to have this uncertainty that it might all just disappear and be wiped away is very concerning.
Will I be able to support my family? What will I tell them? I've moved miles away from them so that I would be useful, and I'm worried that I might be useless.
We'll be out of work. The two boats will be out of work and our crew will be out of work. For the minister to make a decision like that, should have made sure all those bases are covered. Throwing the fish farms under the bus is not going to revive those rivers if we're having problems with other rivers where there is no fish farms.
It's very frustrating. I try to make a point and they tell me I'm lying or I'm bought by the industry or anything like that, because one, I put my ethics before money. I would never be in an industry where I thought they were doing harm to the environment. And two, it's just not true.
Sometimes you can't even tell people that you work in this industry because they already imagine mean, gruff, monster people growing these fish. But we're people.
Thank you, Edith, for coordinating that. I thought it was important today to just be able to show some of the folks that are being impacted by this decision. And that's what hope that video can communicate. I'm told I'm getting an email from Central Command that my time is coming to an end. So I'm just going to race quickly through the rest of our presentation, and happy to take questions. So the decision, and it's all available on our website, looks at about a 25% wiping out of production on the West Coast. That's a quarter. In an 18-month period, it's by any measure unprecedented for any sector. Imagine forestry having to cut 25% of its allowable cut in 18 months with no plan, no offer for help, and really no rationale. We're looking at over 1,500 jobs that could be impacted, both induced, direct and indirect. We've measured and all that. By the way, and all these are numbers, but they're also, like I said, people. And our numbers have been validated and verified by the provincial government. In fact, we met with them repeatedly as we were developing this report to ensure that what we produced for you and for everyone was the best information we could. I'll say on the bottom, that number is actually elevated a little bit in terms of euthanization, and I'll let Dean talk a bit about that if there are questions, but we're looking now around 12 million salmon that could be euthanized. It's a hard number to put a value on because the situation is so fluid, literally and figuratively, and open to questions. But the last one, 20 million, second to last one, that will not be spent potentially on local suppliers. I think what should really cause the most concern, forget the big multinationals, and Dean, you know I love you, but understand that what really powers this sector are small, medium, and local sized businesses in the region that support the activity on the sites. Next slide. And these are some of the fallout. Now it's happening. This isn't, I remember when I first projected the 1,500 number, there were a lot of people who said that I was fear mongering. Well, I hope the data demonstrates that I wasn't, and I didn't mean to. It was our best guess at the time and remains so. And I projected layoffs starting in February. That's occurred. There is a freeze on all capital investment. And that will have an economic impact in our communities. Again, that's not money, that's people. Next. And on our site, we wanted to produce this. Really, I hope it's powerful for you guys, especially given that you're the closest to the people. That's what local government is. And the interconnectedness of this sector across all of our, across the entire network is quite remarkable, and it's really the most interconnected sector on North Island. And this decision has pulled one of those threads, and we're not sure what's going to happen as a result, beyond what we've been able to produce, really just for the region specific to Campbell River and the Discovery Islands area. Next slide. And we've tried to be with government, and I think this is where there'll be conversation today, or maybe not. There could be other conversation areas. We tried to be very clear about what we're asking for. I want to make it 100% clear. We are not asking government to reverse its decision. Okay, there was a process. It occurred. We weren't a part of it. Decision has been made. All we're asking for is more time to consider that decision, because more time is necessary. If you look at the Broughton as an example, we're 3 years into a process to review and potentially remove some of the sites with less production. This is 18 months, half that time for more production, and we're already 3 months into it. And when that decision was made in the Broughton, there was no time frame associated with removal or review or whatever, because that had to occur in concert with industry and nations sitting down with government and coming up with a plan, which we did. And we were able to meet and have a great event, 2 of them at the provincial legislature, with nations, with government and industry, on how best to implement the Broughton protocols. We're asking for the same here. 18 months is an unworkable amount of time. Big part of that is that the transfer hasn't occurred, so I like to call them baby fish. I'm not a scientist, so I can say that. They have nowhere to go. And the government was told that, warned about that, ignored that. Fish don't come to life when they get introduced into the ocean. They come to life when they get introduced and birthed and broodstocked in a hatchery. And more than about half their life exists there.
JP, I'll have to get you to wrap.
To be completed. And then the table, let's bring everyone together and figure out how to do this, because it has been done, it can be done, and it can minimize the impact on animals, most importantly on people. And we can also create some unity, because right now my concern is that there's going to be increased tension in our communities as this decision continues to unfold. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, JP. I'll open up for questions from any directors at this time. Director Davis.
Can you hear me? I just need to check this connection.
Yep, everything's good.
We can't hear you, yes.
Okay, good. I understand the fish farm industry. I've worked in it in the past as a diver and building these pens, and I understand the benefits of the economy. But the thing is, I mean, there has been many issues with disease, sea lice, that sort of thing. In Nootka Sound, where I live, we've had 100% mortality last year from anoxic conditions. There's a lot of issues around these farms, and my question is, the writing has been on the wall for a while that we're eventually going to have to move to closed containment. It's happening in other areas such as the U.S. And why is your company not moving in that direction? Because I think in order to adapt and survive, this is what you're going to have to do. And in fact, you're fighting this decision in court. Why are you doing that?
Well, I'm not a company, so Dean is with me on the call. I think he could easily take the first crack at that question. Go ahead, Dean.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'll give it my best shot anyways. So to answer your first question, MOE has been very clear that if and when land-based salmon farming is a profitable, or shows to be a profitable, I guess, business exercise, it is something that they would certainly be looking at to add to and supplement the ocean salmon farming. There is not, at this point, a profitable business model for land-based salmon farming, and certainly if there were to be land-based farms, you will see them. They will not be happening on Vancouver Island, and they will not be supporting the 6,500 positions that this business currently supports. You need a large land base, you need a active water supply, you need a extensive amount of energy. And so while our company and other companies continue of long-term salmon farming companies look at land-based, it's not been proven to be a financially viable industry to this point. I'm sorry I missed your second question, Martin.
Yeah, I was just asking why you haven't shown a willingness to adapt, and that you are in fact fighting the government over this, because this has been, the writing's been on the wall for quite a while, and I'm not sure, maybe that wasn't my second question.
Yeah, I think they were kind of rolled in together there.
I'd be happy to jump in there too, Dean, if you
Sure.
like.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
To say that the companies haven't adapted is a remarkably inaccurate statement. If you like, I can send you a briefing note, particularly when it comes to lice management that has gone on over the last years. We can even identify the over $500 million that's been invested in new technologies and new systems in and around lice management over the last decade. And we can talk about prevention, we can talk about monitoring, we can talk about regulation, we can talk about response. We can talk about the 9 CSAS reports that came out of the Cohen Commission, none of which found that the presence of aquaculture posed any more than minimal risk to the wild migrating salmon through that region, which was the standard of the Cohen Commission. So to say the writing's been on the wall, yeah, the writing's been on the wall for the last 9 years, and every single time it's been written, it says no more than minimal risk. So what you're talking about here is you're talking about an industry moving to unproven technology based on non-scientific principles. And what the first question, interesting, that's not asked is about the people that are now in harm's way. That should be of primary interest to elected officials.
Well, fair enough.
Thank you.
I live in
Martin, I've got more speakers, so I'm gonna move on first. If we have
Okay,
time, we'll come
thanks.
back. Okay, Director Cornfield.
Thank you, Chair. And I guess my question to you is probably JP, I guess. The first I'd heard about the meals was with the euthanization of 10.7 million smolts. And when you look at that, what does that mean in terms of meals? And I think the first estimate was somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 million meals. Now I see in a report that we had attached to our agenda that it's equivalent about 2 years of the province total harvest of wild salmon over 210 million meals. So is the 210 million the correct number that is a direct result of euthanizing the fish?
I can take this part, John, if you want. So thanks, Charlie. It's a good question. So about 3 weeks ago, we had to kill 925,000 fish in our hatchery. That was the equivalent of 14 million meals. That's probably the number that you're familiar with. The number, and that's basically it's based on a 6-ounce portion of salmon, which is the standard meal size that you would buy in a serving in the store or in a restaurant. So it's based on that number. Using 10.7 million, we've continued to we've continued to add fish into what we have within our systems, because as you can imagine, it's hard to count individual fish. But the 10.7 million smolts are salmon at various stages in their life cycle is the equivalent of over 200 million meals that are going to be lost.
Okay, thank you. And second is just a statement, I guess, and that's in terms of land-based fish farming, and I've been involved with it, and we were approached when I was with Ice-T to fund one, but there was no business case that could be made for it. And I guess one of the advantages that we have in our province and on our coast is that the cost to produce in open net pens or closed containment, but in the ocean, is it's a reduced cost. Land-based operations are extremely expensive, and my old economics and resources looks at the resource and what it takes to convert that to a usable product. If it goes land-based, it will not be in small communities on the east coast of Vancouver Island and the coast of BC. It's going to be where the markets are, because the only way to make up for that difference in the economics from losing the efficiency of marine growing out is to move it closer to the market. And that's the only other advantage they'd have. So it's not going to be here. And anyone that thinks that removing fish farms is going to instantly make salmon, wild salmon stocks return is living a dream.
Okay. Thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I mean, I certainly have a lot that I could add in terms of my opinion about things. Happy to share a couple of things, but really my question to John Paul is, what are you asking of us? What is your request? Because we could go on for hours having a debate about the pros and cons of salmon farming and what to do at this point. I really concur with Director Davis, and I think this has been a long time coming, and I would have really loved to have seen more effort by the industry overall to start to transition. And we are in a very unfortunate position now where a lot of people are going to be desperately impacted because there hasn't been some kind of transition plan put in place either by government or by industry proactively. So you're absolutely right. We do care about our constituents. We do care about their jobs. We do care about their welfare. But it's not our job to bail out an industry per se, even though it really impacts our communities. Now, if you're asking us to go alongside you and ask for a transition plan to government, to ask for some assistance in retraining, retooling, but I'm not interested at all in asking for an overturn, a revoking of the decision, or even a delay of the decision, because it's been a long time coming. So I guess my question really simply to you is, what are you asking here of the board today?
JP.
Sure. It was those three T's at the end of my presentation: time, transfer, and table. We could even start with table if you wanted to go in that order. The time is not delay. Time is trying to figure out how to do this to minimize the impact on people. I take issue with the fact that the industry hasn't been engaged in transition, and in particular in the Discovery Islands area. If maybe at some later point we want to have a conversation about the level of science that's been conducted in that area. When
I mean transition, I mean transition out of the water. I'm not saying that you haven't been proactive in all kinds of ways. So I understand that you have some really clear requests of the decision maker on this around time and transition. What is your request of our board as a non-decision maker?
To support that effort. I mean, I guess the problem we have right now, Director Anderson, is that we have a federal government that hasn't returned any phone calls in 3 months since they made this decision. In fact, they didn't even call us. The minister didn't even call us to announce the decision. We heard from her officials 15 minutes before it was made, which, by the way, according to former Chief Asu, is about the same amount of time that he got when he was informed that this decision was being made in his territory, which is why he described his nation as being completely railroaded through this process by the federal government. That's what predicates this entire decision. So we're saying, let's just step back here. And like I said from the beginning, and people have twisted my words when we say reconsider, that I'm trying to reverse. No one has been saying that. We're not asking for the decision to be reversed. 100% clear, we're being recorded. We are not asking for this decision to be reversed. We are asking for time to figure out how to do it so that fewer of your constituents are negatively impacted. That is all. It's exactly what we did in the Broughton. It's what we can do again. Let's go into the Library of Government, pull off from the shelf that says B, look up the word Broughton, and follow the plan. When the Premier took issue with the federal minister who described this process as reconciliation, he did it with the Broughton process in mind. It was an exercise and an effort to emerge from a process that led to a difficult decision for reconciliation purposes, more united than when we entered. It was never apparently the interest of this government to do that here. And we're asking other levels of government then to help us remind the federal government that there is a different approach, reach the same outcome, but alter the trajectory so that fewer people are negatively impacted.
Thank you, JP.
The fact that, Director, last point, the fact that we're 3 months into this, Director Anderson, without any reply, response, or indication of what the path forward might be from the government who made that decision should give us all a great deal of concern.
So
Thank you, JP. So do you have one more question, Director Anderson?
It was just a clarification. It's not an additional question, but I would like to hear from the industry what your plan is to transition out of the Broughtons to meet the decision that was made. And I think the word reconsideration in my world does mean that you're asking to look at the whole decision again and make a different. So perhaps there's a bit different word to that.
Well,
but if you're indeed
No.
looking for a different time frame, I would ask that you lay that out for us because you're the ones that really know what you're doing.
When the provincial government announced the decision in the Broughton to first remove and potentially remove farms, it didn't apply a time frame because it needed to be done in an orderly manner. That's what good government does.
Okay, thank you. So I have no further questions at this time. So with that, I will thank JP and Dean and Michelle for the presentation today. We wish you good luck as we move forward into better days coming forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, directors, moving forward. Item E, adoption of the minutes of the regular meeting for February 24th. Moved by Director Lee, second by Director Cornfield. Any errors, omissions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Any business rising? I see two hands up. I see Director Anderson and Director Davis.
Sorry, my hand up was from before. I'll put it.
Okay, thank you.
Same here.
Okay, so there's no business rising. I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? Carried. Public considerations is nothing, and there's no notice of motion. Under Chair's report, just a couple quick things actually. Procedure bylaw. Director Adams and I and CEO had a quick conversation the other day about looking at our procedure bylaws, possible changes we could maybe make to the bylaws that make sense, basically just to make our meetings more efficient, running a little more smoothly. So, that's something we're going to be looking into, and when we're ready to bring a report back, we'll have a report back to the board on that. And the only thing on motions, as we go through every agenda, there's times where a director wants to make a motion and we're kind of fumbling along to try and get the motion out there. So maybe we should be looking at making those notice of motions instead of trying to make a motion on the fly. Just food for thought. That's all I have for Chair's report. So can I have approval of Chair's report as a verbal report, please?
Would move receipt of the Chair's verbal report.
Thank you. Seconder, Director Kerr. Any questions? See none, all in favor?
Any opposed?
Sorry, any opposed? I know we're at SRD now and not the village council meeting. Thank you. Any no one's opposed, so it's all carried. Consent calendar, nothing. Committee chair reports.
I would move the draft minutes of the regular meeting of the First Nations Relations Committee held on February 24th, 2021 be received.
Second.
Second.
Comment, please.
Second by Director Davis. And Director Davis, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify I'm not the mayor of Gold River, and it has me listed as such. Thanks.
Thank you. Be a slight change. Thank you. Anything else on the report? No other questions? Okay, I'll call question on. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, carried. Second item, Municipal Service Committee report. Director Davis, motion received.
Can we get people to mute their microphones when they're not using them? I got a lot of feedback. Thank you.
Yeah, there's two or three there, yes. That's better. Okay, Mr. Service report, motion received.
So
I'll
moved.
move that the draft minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Municipal Services Committee held February 24th, 21 be received.
Okay, second by Director Kerr. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. No external reports, under staff reports. Cortez Island Refuge Collection, Director Anderson.
Move A.
And seconder,
Second.
Director Davis, thank you. And the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add unless there's questions from the directors.
Yeah, any questions?
Just one simple one, if I might.
Go ahead, Director Anderson.
I've always heard this contractor referred to as Margaret Verschure, and I think in this one it exclusively refers to the contractor as VEM, which I hadn't seen before, VEM Contracting. And the only way that I have confidence this is in fact the Verschures is because it says they've been at it for 10 years and it's the Verschures have been at it. So I'm just curious why the change in term. Thanks.
CEO.
I'll go to Wolfgang on that.
Through the chair to the board, good afternoon, everybody. Director Anderson, to respond to your question, BEM Contracting is Margaret Verschure Sons company. So they have decided to create this business, and but it's basically Margaret who is going to be signing the contract.
Thank you. That's appreciated, and just that would have been great in the report. Thanks, Wolfgang.
You're very welcome.
Any other discussion? Questions? See none, on receipt, is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item B. Move contract to Cortez Island, moved by Director Anderson, second by Director Kerr. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item 2, Sayward Valley Refuge Collection, Director Woolley.
Move receipt.
Seconder. Director Colburn. CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add unless there's questions.
Is there any questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item B, contract to Sayward Refuge Collection be awarded to Waste Management of Canada.
Move B.
Thank you, Director Woolley. Second. Director Colburn. Any further discussion? On B, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Seen and carried. Number 3, Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Plan. Director Davis, would you move that?
So moved.
And a seconder.
Second.
Director Adams, thank you. The CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have Renee speak to this.
Good afternoon, directors. As you can see in the report, the organization Vancouver Island Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Summits, they've hosted one summit in November and would like to ensure representation from all communities and organizations. And they would like to host a First Nations summit and a youth summit, and are looking for grants and funding for those summits to take place. And then all 3 summits will get together in the fall to create the plan to present to the Vancouver Island coastal communities.
Excellent, thank you. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I had
Director
brought a
Davis.
motion forward. Sorry, I had brought a motion forward regarding voting to contribute $1,000 towards these continuing efforts. And as I mentioned before, I have saved probably at least that much in not physically attending these meetings. So I'd just like to bring this forward again for the board's consideration. Thank you.
Okay, so you're ready.
We have, if Edie, you could bring up the report, or Tom, it has the resolution in there.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you skipped it. No, it's the original.
Back a bit more.
So, Mr. Chairman, at the top of the screen that I'm sharing right now is the motion
Okay.
that I believe Director Davis wanted to have considered after receipt of this report.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything more on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried.
I'm opposed.
To receipt?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Director Cornfield is opposed. Anyone else opposed? Carried. And Director Davis, you have a motion.
Can I just ask that the screen be moved down a bit? It's partly obscured my motion. I just want to reread it.
Okay.
Okay, so there's the motion that the Strathcona Regional District contribute $1,000 to Vancouver Island Climate Planning Leadership Committee to assist in funding their upcoming First Nation Youth Climate Leadership Summits.
Second. Do I have a second? Sorry, was that Director Baker?
It was Abram.
Okay, Director Abrams seconded. Thank you. Any further discussion?
Yes, please. My hand's up.
Okay, go ahead, Director Cornfield.
Part of that discussion that occurred over the motion was to identify the source of funding. And I still don't see a source of funds here. In terms, it's always been a problem coming up with a grant or a grant and aid from the regional board, easier to do under ESC or under an electoral areas funding source, but I need to know the source of funding. And the second part of that question, which is why part of the reason why the motion had been deferred, was to also find out what the total cost of putting it on was. And the only thing I've seen so far was 14,000 and something to host the first one, which was attended by all the local governments. So it was to find out what the cost was and what everybody else is contributing. And I don't see that anywhere in the reports, and the director has not identified anything.
So, Mr. Chair, I can address the first question really quickly. It would come out of general government.
Okay, thank you.
Maybe.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Director Davis.
Unfortunately, I have made some inquiries, and any information that's provided is within the information that we have here, and I can't really add anything to it. I've made these requests on a couple of occasions. So,
okay.
Mr. Chair, I see Renee might have an answer for us.
I do. I see that too. Go ahead, Renee.
Yes, I just wanted to outline that the total 14,600 was for the First Nations engagement and the youth engagement for the two separate summits. Just to clarify that, and we did not receive information about which particular grants that the organization was applying for, although they were successful in obtaining grants for the first summit.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yes.
Director Cornfield.
I still didn't get my question answered as to who was contributing. What are the other regional districts or communities contributing? Outside of the Strathcona Regional District.
Okay, does staff have an answer to that question?
Yes, sorry, the information I received was that it was up to each director to go to their organizations and determine what that funding would be. I'm not aware of the details of which communities have or haven't at this point.
So we don't know whether anyone else anywhere has contributed any money towards it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So I will not be supporting the motion.
Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed?
I'm opposed.
I'm opposed, Wally.
Director Moklove. Director Moklove, I'm opposed.
Councillor Kerr, I'm opposed.
Kerr's opposed.
Dahl.
Dahl's opposed.
Director Adams.
Adams is opposed.
Did you get me, Mr. Chair, Wally?
Yes, I did.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else opposed?
And you got me, Moglove?
I believe we have you too, yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll vote Unger's opposed.
That's 7 opposed, Mr. Chair.
7 opposed, that's defeated. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item. Number 4, 2020 Emergency Operations Center Grant Revision. CO, motion received report.
I would move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Thank you. Seconder, Director Kerr, thank you. And the CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Koopman will speak to this for us.
Thank you. Mr. Koopman.
Good afternoon, Regional Board. So the anticipated extra workload from COVID-19 means that the City of Campbell River staff will no longer be able to fully participate in our flood exercise as planned. So I'd like to reallocate half of the money that was allocated to that exercise to upgrading the antenna infrastructure at Visitor Radio at the Strathcona Gardens.
Thank you. Do you have any questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item B, the UBCMB requested to approve the use of the Emergency Preparedness Program grant funds for the purpose identified.
I'll move B.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
And Director Kerr, did you have a question?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on B? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item number 5, Fire Smart Economic Recovery Program. Motion receipt.
Move A.
Director Anderson, second by Director Kerr. The CO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sean will speak to this again.
Phil.
Thank you. So to the board, sure you've noticed under correspondence number 1 that the regional district recently obtained over $200,000 for wildfire risk reduction. What you see in front of you is my request to apply for another wildfire risk reduction grant for about twice that amount. The focus of this grant will be to reduce the vulnerability of our critical infrastructure and community buildings from being destroyed or damaged during a wildfire event. And since the staff publication deadline, I can say that the Cortes Island Firefighting Association has provided their resolution of support, and the Village of Gold River has expressed interest in joining as a partner as well, and will be bringing a staff report to their mayor and council on Monday.
Thank you. Any questions on receipt?
I have a question for Mr. Koopman.
Director Adams.
The total request for this is $406,400. Is that correct?
Correct.
And the grant funding is $203,803.94.
Correct.
Where's the balance of the money coming from?
So, to Director Adams through the chair, the $200,000 has already been received through the UBCM Community Resiliency Investment Grant. So that money is allocated and ready to go to work. The application in front of you is requesting your resolution of support to apply for a new grant, a Fire Smart Economic Recovery Grant through the UBCM.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? See none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item B, the application for 2021 Fire Smart Economic Recovery Grant Program be sent. Thank you. Moved by Director Kerr.
Second, Anderson.
Director Anderson, second. Thank you. Any further discussion? See none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 6, Information Technology Support Service Contract. Motion received the report.
So moved.
Director Adams, second by Director
Second.
Cornfield. Go ahead, CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll give this off to Mr. Schmulin to explain.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through the chair to the board. Technology delivery at the SRD is designed around the industry best practices with attention to lean IT methodology and a focus on waste reduction and value creation. The SRD uses a combination of internal staffing and third-party contractors to deliver the full range of IT services required by our organization. As the 3-year contract with our managed service provider is expiring, we felt it appropriate to re-examine and revise our support services needs and once again go to market and review proposals from managed service providers that could deliver these services, including 24/7 network security and information protection at the best value for taxpayer dollars. The pandemic challenges over the last year has definitely changed the landscape around remote and telework and how all that technology can be supported in an efficient and cost-effective manner. Of the 14 RFP responses we reviewed, Vincovi Technology Solutions stood out as providing the best overall value, and we recommend the board consider awarding them this 3-year contract.
Thank you, Mr. Schmullen. Any questions? See any, so on receipt, call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute the contract with Vincovi Technology Solutions.
Move B.
Director Adams, second by Director Kerr. Any further discussion? See none, I'll call question. Anyone opposed? Carried. Item 7, take a checklist First Nations membership on SRD.
Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. Second by Director Moglove and the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Yates will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The report in front of the board today outlines a number of steps that still have to be taken to welcome the Cayuga-Chesloket First Nation director to the board. Of those action items, the one that will need to be addressed by the board itself will be the direct compensation bylaw. And so we are recommending that the board direct that such an amendment be brought forward for the board's next meeting, which will be ahead of the official April 1st, 2021 deadline for joining the SRD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Yates. Is there any questions? Director Cornfield.
Just when it comes to identifying costs, apportionments, all of that sort of thing, that would happen when it comes back before the board for the bylaw consideration?
Well, that can certainly be included, yes.
Okay, so the cost, for instance, for IT and stuff is that the report did say that there was only one thing that's the board's consideration. So is the finances already in the financial plan?
They are.
I can answer that. I would say yes. I think financially we're talking fairly small amounts. So yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? See none. Question on B. Anyone opposed? See none. Carried.
Mr. Chairman, I believe that was the vote on A.
Sorry, that was the
That's
vote on A.
correct. I'll move
Sorry.
that the amendments to bylaw number 167 being director compensation bylaw number 2013 be prepared for the board's consideration at the March 24th, 2021 meeting.
Thank you, Director Cornfield, and second by Director Kerr. Is there any discussion on B? See none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? See none, carried. Item 8, Crown Line Referral 1414969, Tweety Stations Sewer Outfall. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, Director Waldy, I think it was, and the CEO. Sorry, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll let Aniko speak to this.
Thank you, through the chair to the board. The report before you is to formally advise the board of a referral received from the province of BC regarding a proposed sewage outfall by the Cowities. into the Strait of Georgia at Stories Beach. The Qawitsi Nation is requesting a statutory right-of-way over the Crown land or seabed for the installation of their new marine outfall at Stories Beach as part of their sanitary wastewater system, which is intended to service the Qawitsi's new community fronting York Road and backing onto Nigel Crescent at Craig Road. The report that has been provided as part of the referral is limited in its nature. However, we are assuming that the route that the proposal will take place will follow through the Craig Road area down Henry and terminate on the unopened right-of-way adjacent to Appian Way. We are somewhat limited in our considerations from a staff level, given mainly jurisdictional constraints and the involvement of both the federal and provincial governments at this time. Although we don't have any formal authority over the implementation of the utility within these provincial or federal lands, we can provide comment as it relates to our support for the proposal or further considerations that the SRD would like explored. We do recognize that the area does have an OCP in place, which provides policies for the protection of the natural environment, the aquatic environment, and public recreational areas. We acknowledge the fact that this outfall is adjacent to a couple of recreational areas in the Area D environment, which is highly accessed by both locals and those from other areas of the regional district. Should the board wish to provide any comments or recommendation on the referral, they are afforded that opportunity now. Thank you.
Okay, and I have questions, Director Adams and Director Abrams. So Director Adams, go ahead. Director Adams, do you have a question?
My apologies, I was muted. Thank you. Just in my role, not only as director for the SRD, but as mayor for the city of Campbell River, I have been receiving in the last couple of days emails, letters, and phone calls from Area D residents regarding their concerns on this, and have taken the position that this is beyond the city of Campbell River's jurisdiction, referred them to the Strathcona Regional District or the province or the federal government with their MP, and will continue to do so unless requested or advised to do otherwise.
Thank you, Director Adams. Director Abram.
Yeah, I do have a comment. I'm just wondering if Director Lee would like to, if she would, I'd like to come right after her.
Well, you're before her, so go ahead.
Okay, fine. I personally I was around when that OCP was developed, when we were at the CSRD, and the public support in that area for no sewage outfalls in the Stories Beach area was phenomenal. Nobody wanted to have sewage outfall going into very, very highly used aquatic environment where the tide goes out at a phenomenal distance, where little kids are out there digging with their little sand buckets and stuff, and when the tide's in further, there's surfers out there. It's the best surf along that shoreline, and I absolutely would oppose any kind of effluent going out there from any community. I don't care if it's from the neighbors or if it's from Qawitsis or whatever. It's just not a good thing to do, and the community has already spoken on that issue. And I believe it was one of the things that sort of pushed the community. This is just from memory, so I could be slightly wrong here, but I think it kind of pushed the community towards a community sewer system that was going to join up with Campbell River to keep them from having to put their sewage out onto the beach. So I am absolutely opposed to that. I hope that everybody else will be.
Okay, thank you. Director Cornfield, Lee, and Anderson. So Director Cornfield, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is quite a little bit different discussions, or at least observations. The My understanding is this is all treated effluent. It meets all of the current, no different discharge than the sewage treatment plant from the city of Campbell River, which also goes out into Discovery Passage. I have a couple of questions. One is, has there been any discussions with neighbors, and is there regarding the potential for neighbors along that line to be able to connect?
Staff?
Well, maybe I'll go first then, Aniko, but just a reminder that this is not our process. This is just a referral. We don't have any owner. Yeah, no, I know. So we don't have any ownership in it, and I have had, I would say, some very high level discussions that if there was any interest in capacity in that plant or potential expansion, that we would be interested in having conversation with them. But beyond that, I'm not aware of any consultation there has been for connections to that. Now, just remind you that this is an outfall, so it is highly unlikely there'd be any connection to that because the outfall is post-treatment. So
connections to the system would have been a better way for me to have phrased that.
Sure. Yeah.
The other one is, my understanding is that because it still has to meet all of the discharge permit requirements, regardless of who's operating or running it, I'm assuming therefore it would be monitored. And do staff have any indication as to how that would occur?
Mr. Chair, again, reading through the correspondence, I have a little familiarity myself from a past life, and the level of treatment that they're engaging in is the highest level of sewer effluent treatment out there, and it's classified as Class A treatment. There's no higher, and that comes with a stringent requirement for testing and monitoring and so on and so forth.
Okay, and then one last comment, and that's, I was also involved on the board when the study was done that shows how much of our shoreline has been polluted and is no longer available for shellfish production because of septic systems. Septic systems all leach and they all head to the ocean. And that's contaminated more beaches than anything. A properly designed sewage outfall, treated outfall, stuck way out into the ocean is a far better resolution to the situation and increasing septic disposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. Director Lee.
Thank you very much. I received a referral from the planning department on the 2nd of February, and I sent in my official response as director for the area on February 6th, and I sent in responses to all the pertinent agencies by February 6th. And since that time, all of February, neighborhood by neighborhood, people in the neighborhoods were writing letters to Crown Lands to try to express opposition to this outfall. We are very opposed to putting an outfall in this area. The management report that was submitted with the application says that it's only secondary treatment with disinfection. But this Crown Land referral is not about, I could go into 1,000 reasons why this is the worst location to put a sewer outfall. It crosses a protected rockfish area, federally protected. We have all kinds of bylaws in place in Area D to protect the foreshore environment because it's environmentally sensitive. Right now we have herring roe all along the beach, and that's really important to fishermen. We have rare and endangered species on that beach, such as heron and eagles, and we have next to the protected beach, as well as the protected beach, we have Stories Beach, which is the white sandy beach that all of our region and adjacent regions love to recreate at. There's kayaking, paddleboarding, swimming, sunbathing. It's a really popular beach, and I would dare say that most of the people in Campbell River love coming to Stories Beach for weekend picnics and whatnot with their families. It's not the right place to put a sewage outfall. And from all the reports I've read, because the tide meets between Stories Beach and Oyster Bay, the water slows down. It doesn't have the flushing capacity that you have on the north end of Campbell River where they have their outfall. And so things will just hang there. And in southeast storms, they'll blow back towards this sensitive beach. But this Crown land referral, they advertised it in the Campbell River Mirror for, three times, and they put the wrong website address. So people were having a lot of difficulty sending their comments into the Crown Land office in Campbell River. And the deadline was supposed to be March the 5th. And so most people have already put in their comments from Stories Beach, including me. And we, all the comments I've seen are very adamantly opposed because people are very protective of the beautiful environment we have at Stories Beach and all of the species that rely on it. So, for example, we just had a pod of orcas go through that very area last Saturday, and they were feeding on porpoises and seals and whatnot along Stories Beach and Oyster Bay. And I can't imagine those beautiful creatures having to swim through sewer effluent. And it is only secondary treated with disinfection. It isn't the highest standard of treatment possible. And the management report that was sent with it said that. So I would recommend to the board, honestly, because the deadline is like they extended the deadline to March 17th because they misinformed the public of the correct website connection. And I have already given my official response through planning. Which planning sent me. So as far as I'm concerned, I think the board should just leave this with the people in Area D to continue to comment on, pro or con, and just receive the report.
Mr. Chair, if I can just chime in there, because Director Lee is maybe misleading the board, is that she said she's provided her official response. I've indicated in the report that the Local Government Act requires that any consent, approval, or recommendations to be provided on such matters are done so by the Regional District Board. So there isn't the legislative authority for an individual director to do that. All comments must come from the board.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, point of order. Mr. Chair, I'm not trying to mislead the board. I received a formal referral from the planning department, which requested my response by February 19th, which I gave them on, I think it was February 5th or 6th. They got it back from me. And that was my official response. And I wasn't aware that it was going to go any further. And, so I'm not trying to mislead the board. I really object to the CAO treating a director like that. That's very disrespectful.
Okay. No, what the CEO said is that when your report came in, it's not the official report. The official report comes from the SRD board, not yourself. That's all he said.
Well, so, I'm just saying that I had an official piece of paper from planning and I responded to it.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you. From a basic matter point of equity, I don't think that this board can ethically recommend denial of this unless we have some alternative suggestion. This area has been developed both with sewer and septic by a whole lot of settlers for a whole long time, and we have a First Nation of this region in general who is also trying to develop a residential area. And because they are late to the residential game, I don't think that it is possibly fair from an equity perspective that we recommend denying this unless we're willing to work with them hard on an alternative. So if there's a motion put forward to just not support, I will certainly be voting against it unless we're working in a proactive way. Thank you.
Okay, there's no motion this time. Director Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question is, like, I'm looking at the map here and I see a lot of divided lots, so I assume there is quite a bit of development in that area. Is there any trunk sewers, or is everybody currently on septic along the shore there?
Everyone's on septic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So is there any other first-time speakers? If not, I've got Director Abram and Adams a second time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Number one, as far as Director Cornfield's comments about there being monitoring, et cetera, well, we have one of the best treatment plant sewers on Quapiaski Cove. We pay for an incredible amount of repair to the outfall pretty much annually, maybe every couple of years or whatever. But even at the best of times, when we are told we're doing the best there can be, it's still not good. It's still, it's whatever that is, whether it's 10 parts per million or whatever, but there is a standard there met, and we do meet it, but it's still not good. It's adding to the problem. As far as other people, excuse me, Mr. Chair, I do have something else to say, and that is if we're going to deny, the first thing you have to look at is how much land is available at the Coetzee properties that there could be an upland sewage effluent treatment disposal. And if that was done, there's your positive way of dealing with it. You don't have to stick it into the ocean. And lastly, the provincial government in every single department, and the federal government usually, will send out a referral form to a director. And a director has the authority as the director for that area to send in their comments. They may not be the same as the board's comments, absolutely, but the director can send their comments in as being the Area D comments. So, our CAO's comments may be correct that, that's not the board position. I wish it were the board position. I wish for once our board would support a local area director that has done a fantastic job of looking into the issue in their own area and has come up with a positive situation, which is deny the application.
Thank you. Director Adams.
Thank you. I'll start off just by reiterating that I will not speak in favor or in opposition, as I believe this is the jurisdiction of the regional district and, more importantly, the Area D director. But I do need to comment on Director Abrams' reference that the city of Campbell River as the sewage system may be an opportunity, as that is completely inappropriate and incorrect. The first reiterations of the Coetzee application was for a standalone sewage system within the property that is being provided by the federal government on York Road. When there was a discussion about potentially hooking up with the sewer system in Campbell River, while the volume may be insignificant and not an issue, the distance and the logistics are beyond the city's financial capacity. Should the federal government fund 100% of it, we could consider it, but they were not prepared to do that, so it is not anything that we would be entertaining or considering at this time. And as such, our understanding was that this was going to be a standalone system completely contained within the property of the Coetzee on York Road, with no outfall or discharge. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So nothing any other speak,
Mr. Chair. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify one thing. Director Adams seemed to think that I said something about Campbell River. I did not say anything about Campbell River's
Okay.
quantity, quality, whatever. I was talking about the past history about whether or not there would be adjoining to a sewage system, and I did say very clearly that I could very well be wrong. And if I was wrong, I apologize.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any further questions. So
Yes,
on,
Mr. Chair, may I have a little bit more time, please?
if it's something new, Director Lee, if
It
not,
is,
we're going to move forward.
It is new. So the Cloetzes have 638 acres. They have room for ground disposal, and the systems that exist now are very sophisticated. I haven't had any complaints from people about problems with ground disposal. We don't have the proper environment to have a sewer outfall in this area without seriously impacting our environmentally sensitive environment, which goes against Area D's community plan, and which was carefully developed by our community. And I would really like I would really like this Crown land to be denied, and that the Cloetzes work towards getting a ground disposal on their own reserve. Another aspect that hasn't been mentioned is that since they are not on piped water, they don't have a water supply to run a sewage treatment plant. And the management report that they submitted with this application said that they plan to run the sewage treatment plant on surface water. And in the summertime, the York area completely dries up. It goes into drought. There's people getting water delivered to their wells by tanker trucks. And I don't see it to be practical to have a plant being run without a year-round guaranteed water supply. I just don't see that being able to work very well. And I'm really worried about any malfunctions that might happen in the vicinity of our beautiful white sandy beach and our beautiful environment.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Lee. Very good, thank you. Director Mogulof, to wrap it up.
Thanks. So to be honest, I'm a little bit confused as to what the board can and cannot do, and what the board should and should not do. So I would like to be able to support Director Lee, and I really appreciate all the work that she has done. But what I'm hearing from staff is that the response that she has provided may not be considered an official response from the SRD. So in order for the SRD to have a response, I guess I'm just a little bit confused about that, because I thought I heard Director Lee say that her first choice would be that the board does nothing. But if the board does nothing, then is her response that she's already provided, is staff saying that will hold no water? No pun intended. So
it won't be it won't be an official response from the SRD. So if the SRD wants to provide one, we will need direction through a resolution.
Okay, second question then on that. If the board wanted to go ahead and do that, in terms of the basis on which we can recommend against, my understanding from the report, it can be based on the land use policies or the OCP in that area, and the protection of aquatic habitat, the foreshore, and public recreational areas. Do I understand the report correctly, that is a basis on which we can recommend against?
Well, I think there's a couple bases. One, there's a technical basis like you're just speaking to, and then there's a political or community interest basis there. Okay. It's the board's opinion. So however the board wants to support or oppose this, it's completely up to them.
Okay, and what's the deadline again?
Aniko, do you know that?
After the chair, the deadline extended it to March 17th.
So if we're going to do something, it has to be done at today's meeting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So
okay,
that's all.
Okay, thank you. So on receipt, do I have any Question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Do I have a resolution?
Have a motion.
Director Abram.
Have a motion. Yeah, I would like to take Director Moglov's extremely well put words, working on using the OCP and Dave's comments about the sort of social license, et cetera, using those words, just if you could just hang on one sec. But I would also like to make it positive and make the message to the government positive and say that we are opposed to it for the OCP reasons and the social license reasons, but we are in favor of a on-site sewage treatment and disposal field. And that could be the SRD's wording so that it's not, it's not rubbing anybody's face in anything. It's saying something good.
Okay, so I need a motion.
Okay, well, let's start with what you have right there.
I have a suggestion to make.
Okay, so let's go to Director Moglov.
My suggestion is that we table this issue, even for 20 minutes. I think staff understand what we want to do, and I'm sure that they could craft a motion that would cover what I was saying and what Director Abram was saying and what Director Lee was saying. So instead of us trying to draft something on the fly, could we just not table this and give staff time to put something together for us?
I'll second that, as long as it includes that it comes back at this meeting.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so let's table it till the last item on the agenda. How's that?
I just want to make sure I don't put staff on the spot. Do you have enough information to craft something for us?
Well, we can do our best.
I'll second the deferral motion.
Okay, it's not a deferral, it's a table.
Table defer,
motion.
same thing.
The motion's been tabled by Director Moglov till the end of the meeting, second by Director Adams.
Good.
Any question on the motion? Seeing none, opposed, carried. Okay, item 9, North Island 911 Corporation. Motion to receive the report.
I'll move that the report be received, and I'll have a subsequent.
Seconder.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cornfield. And to the CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think it's probably appropriate that Director Moglov speak to this.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dave.
Director Moglov.
Thanks. So this issue of cost sharing at North Island 911 has been on the table there for several years. And the board there has finally come to a decision as to the direction we should be going. And of the different scenarios that were presented originally back last summer, which I think at that time there were 9 different scenarios, we whittled it down to 3 different scenarios back in, I think it was November. The one that was voted on is the one that is 50%. It'll be based.
No, Edie is Betty here?
Got to mute Dave.
I'll ask her.
Hey, Dave, can you move?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, so the one that was chosen or voted on at the North Island 911 meeting was the apportionment would move from 100% based on assessment to a system where 50% assessment, 50% population. Now, all the scenarios that had been presented to North Island 911, all of them involved an increase to the Strathcona Regional District, but the increase on this scenario is the least of all of the different scenarios. So this is the best option for the SRD in terms of any possible increase. The issue will be going forward. Like, this is going to be for 3 years to see what happens. This was a significant, I would say, compromise on behalf of the Nanaimo Regional District and the Comox Valley Regional District, because both of those regional districts really wanted to see some of the assessment based on call volume. And I argued against that quite vociferously, mainly because how they were calculating call volume. I just wasn't satisfied with after I had discussions with our fire chief here and Stephanie Bremer. So anyway, I think this is a really good compromise for the North Island 911. It is the least of the possible increases, and so my subsequent will be that we support it, and I hope I'll get the support of the board.
Thank you, Dr. Mogul. Do I have any questions? Seeing none, I'll call question on receipt. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Director Mogul.
Thank you. And so my subsequent is the option 1, which is contained in the staff report on page 2, I believe it is, that the regional district consent to the shareholder resolutions contained in Appendix A to the February 19, 2021 correspondence from the North Island 911 Corporation, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute the resolutions on behalf of the Strathcona Regional District.
Second.
Second, Director Cornfield. Thank you. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes.
Director Abram.
Thank you. I would just like to thank her for the work that she's done on this corporation. It's not an easy one. And the option that you have recommended to us is, I think, the best one, and I totally support it and support your representation.
Great, thank you, Director Abram. Is there any other questions? Seeing none on the question, I'll call, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Under bylaws, first bylaw, bylaw 419. Motion to receive the report.
Move receipt.
Director Lee, second.
Second.
Director Cornfield, thank you. It's the CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing to add.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Mr. Chair, could we have a peek at the agenda, please?
Okay. So on receipt, anyone opposed? Seen and carried. Item B.
Move first reading.
Second.
Director Lee, Director Davis, thank you. Any discussion? Question on B, anyone opposed? Carried. Item C, will suspend bylaw 419, given second and third readings. Director Lee, Director Kerr, thank you. Any further discussion? Question, anyone opposed? Carried. Item D, bylaw 419, be finally passed and adopted. Director Cornfield?
Second.
Director Kerr, thank you. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. Item number 2, bylaw 423, financial plan capital expenditure. Motion receive.
So moved.
Director Adams, second. Director Cornfield, thank you. The CEO.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The only comment is upon public notification, advertisement, articles in the newspaper, we had 0 comments from the public.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chair.
Director Adams, or Anderson, sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I think that when there is no comment from the public at all on something as substantive, which has certainly not been the only year that's been the case, we need to design a more inclusive process to involve public comment, because it certainly doesn't mean that there isn't interest. There's something wrong on our end, I think.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the report? On receipt.
Comment, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead. Director Wally?
Yeah, for staff, I wonder if it'd be possible for those who are interested, like myself, to have a little booklet when the financial plan is complete.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question on receipt? Seeing none, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item B, submissions for public respect be received at this time. Moved by Director Colburn.
Second.
Director Baker. Any discussion? Seeing none, call question. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Item C, 423 be given third reading. Moved by Director Colburn, second by
Second. Wally.
Director Wally. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call question on C.
Yes, yes, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I had my
Yeah.
hand up.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll be brief because I spoke more verbosely last time, but I will be voting against the budget for the first time in 13 budget cycles, which really saddens me. And this is primarily for two reasons. One is I just don't think the board has been given the budget detail that we're historically used to, or that I require to make an informed decision about this budget at so many levels. And the other more specifically has to do with the planning function. There's no information before the board about the plans to address our key long-range planning items of official community plans and zoning bylaw updates. No work plans presented to the board or budget that is responsive to those work plans. And our core documents are between 10 and 25 years old, which is just not on. And there was no substantive opportunity for the Electoral Area Services Committee or the board to discuss. The very first time that this came to EASC, we were told it was essentially too late for substantive engagement. So I think both from a process point of view and a content point of view, I'm really sad to say that I can't support the budget for the first time in my elected office. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Adams.
I didn't have my hand up, but I'll comment. I think our finance staff and COO have done an excellent job and provided more than ample opportunity, and I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Anything else on C? See none, I'll call question. Is anyone opposed?
Director Anderson opposed.
Thank you.
Lee
Anyone else?
opposed.
And Lee's opposed. Thank you. See no further, call question is passed. And item D, that bylaw 423 being 2021-2025 financial plan and capital expenditure program bylaw be now reconsidered and finally passed and adopted.
So
Motion
moved.
to Director Adams.
Second. Wally.
Director Wally, thank you. Any discussion? Call question, is anyone opposed?
Director Anderson opposed.
Director Anderson, Director Lee's opposed. Seeing no further, call question, that's passed. Okay. So just before I go to correspondence, directors, just thinking of back to number 8, I'm hoping a director is writing up a resolution. Because remember, staff don't write them.
So, Mr. Chair, Aniko has put something together for the board. If it pleases them, it's appreciated. It's her best shot at in the time given. So I sent it to Edith. Edith, could you emailed it to you? Could you kind of put it up on the screen if you can? Or Tom, I sent it to you too, Tom.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest we continue with correspondence until that's put up?
Well, just see how close they're. Are they close to getting up, Seal?
Edith, do you have it there?
I'm just pulling it up right now. Give me just like a minute.
Okay.
Okay.
Dave, I could only share one screen at a time.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, good.
Okay, so there is a motion up front.
So again, Mr. Chair, this is just our interpretation of the discussion we had, and happy to make any changes depending on what the board thinks about this.
Joe?
I think it's a great resolution.
You're going to move it, Brenda?
Thank you, Aniko. Yes, I will move it.
I'll second.
Thank you. Yep,
Sorry,
move.
through the chair, if I may, I just realized that in my quick typing, I think it should say within the Coyotes land. My apologies at the very end.
Within, okay.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Aniko.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion on the?
Mr. Chairman, if I could. Thank you. There are two sentences, two thoughts within the proposed motion. I would suggest they be linked by an and to meet the standard formatting for board motions.
Okay.
If they're just and, Tom, can you suggest where to stick them?
Yeah, right there.
Right there. Excellent. Okay, any questions? Director Mogul?
Yeah, sorry, I probably maybe missed this. I should have, what's Front Counter BC?
That's the agency where all the referrals go to.
Oh,
provincial
okay.
agency, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any other questions?
So do we have the correct address for Front Counter BC, because the public were given the wrong one for a couple months?
Yeah, no, we know it. We deal with Front Counter BC plenty, yeah.
Okay, for the Crown file. Yeah, okay.
Okay. Okay, I'll call question on the motions. Anyone opposed?
Director Anderson opposed.
Thank you. Director Anderson's opposed. Anyone else opposed? Seeing none, carried. Correspondence. We have okay, correspondence. We move all correspondence.
Move receipt of all correspondence.
Second by Director Adams. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I know that the Fire Smart funding is noted confidential. I just wonder if there's any reason that shouldn't be on in camera. And I note that number 4, the human trafficking, there's a requested action. So I think maybe one or both of those should be pulled.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry,
Tom?
on the first item, the embargo on releasing of that has expired. So,
okay. Okay, so we're okay on that one. And yes. Item 4, Director Anderson, you want to pull number 4 for discussion?
I just note that there's a requested action there.
Okay, so on items 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6.
Move 1, 2, 3, 5, 6.
Director Lee, thank you. Second by Director Adams. Okay, thank you. Is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. And item 4, human trafficking awareness. Motion received.
So moved.
Director Anderson, second.
Second.
Somebody? Thank you. That was Director Colburn, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And anything to add, Director Anderson?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's a matter that the board particularly wants to wade into. It's sort of a bit above our bailiwick, but I do note that the letter, the ask is to present to the board. So I think it would just be courteous to respond, just have staff or the chair respond and advise the author of the application form to be a delegation. Thanks.
Yeah, we received their letter. Thanks.
So yeah, just a response with a link to the application to delegate, just as a courtesy.
Okay, thank you. Tom, do we need a motion on that, or we'll just respond?
Mr. Chairman, if there is direction to staff, typically that would be in the form of a motion.
Okay, thank you.
I'd happily move after receipt.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else on receipt? Director Mogul, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay, thank you.
I forgot to put it down.
No problem. On receipt then, I'll call questions. Anyone opposed? Seen none, carried. And subsequent motion, Director Anderson.
Thank you. Apologies, I don't have it written out, but just that a letter be provided in response, providing the, I don't know what's called, the delegation application form. Board delegation application form. Thanks.
I received. Thank you. And do I have a seconder?
Second that, Davis.
Director Davis, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none,
I
I'll
do.
call question. Oh, sorry, Director Mogul.
Thanks. First of all, I'm against human trafficking. But I do think that we as a board should perhaps stay within our bailiwick, and I don't really want to be encouraging delegations on issues that really have nothing to do with the board or our mandate. So I won't be supporting this.
Joe? Cornfield.
Just to echo Director Moglove, yes, I don't support human trafficking either. But at the same time, let's stay within our mandate and deal with the stuff that we're supposed to look after.
Yep, Director Adams.
Thank you. I agree with the two previous directors and that I would support a letter be provided that we have received their letter and end there, but would not, will be in opposition to providing a delegation application form.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'll call question on the motion.
I have one. Oh.
Director Colburn.
I'm wondering then if the mover would consider a friendly that the letter be provided in response saying that we have received it, and for more information, just the SRD website. It doesn't provide them with the form. It just says, you know, we've received it and thank you. Here's how to contact the SRD.
Okay, well, that kind of changes what the motion, the motion there right now. It just goes from an application to
Fair enough.
thank you received. So that would be a separate motion, I believe.
Yeah, I think it's a fair motion, but I don't think reasonably it's a friendly.
Yep, thank you. So I'll call question. Anyone opposed?
Opposed, Wally.
Wally's opposed.
Moglove opposed.
Moglove's opposed.
Kerr opposed.
Kerr.
Cornfield opposed.
Cornfield, Adams.
Baker's opposed.
Baker's opposed. Cornfield's opposed. Unger's opposed. It's opposed.
Dahl's opposed.
Dahl's opposed. Thank you.
It fails.
It's defeated. Do we have another motion, or are we just going to carry on? Seeing none, we'll move on. Under P, members report, Marine Plan Partnership, Director Abram.
Yeah, it's just a report for you for your information.
Thank you.
From the MSPP process.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you. Second. Director Cornfield, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. No management report, no new business, no addendum. Closed. That report for CAO be received.
So moved.
Director Lee, second.
Second.
Director Colburn, thank you. Any discussion? Question on receipt?
Mark on the floor.
Sorry? On receipt, is anyone opposed? Carried. And B, the closed meeting be held immediately following termination of the public meeting to be considered 91 A, C, E, F, G, I, K, N, O, and 92B of the community charter.
So moved.
Director Colburn, Director Davis, thank you. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. Terminate.
So moved.
Move termination.
Second.
Director Colburn. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, carried. See you in a few minutes on close, people.